Okay, guys, we are live. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Equine Voices. My name is Ronnie. I'm your host for this evening's interview, and I'm so excited to have a joint interview with Dr. Susan Fay and Josh Nichol from Canada. Yes, from Canada. So I'm going to bring them in and they can introduce themselves for those of you that don't know who they are. And if we have any questions, if you can message those during the interview and we'll get back and answer the questions as they come if we can. But I want them to come on and just have a little chat first. Okay, so I shall bring them both in and Dr. Susie will introduce herself. Hi, guys.
Hello. Thank you, Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie.
You're welcome. So, Susie, would you like to go first?
Sure. For those that don't know me, I'm Dr. Susie Fay, and I wrote a book called Sacred Spaces, Communion with the Horse Through Science and Spirit. And in that book, I really talk about how if we change ourselves, we can begin to change our horses and even the relationship with everyone else in our life. So that is my dedication. I work mostly in the energy field and with relational principles from psychology. So I was a horse trainer for many years, so I bring that piece of it in too. So just making everything easier for both us and our horses.
Thank you, Susie. That was lovely. Josh, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yes, my name is Josh Nichol, and I have pretty much lived my entire life with horses. I studied at university as well, developed kind of a science, I guess I got a science degree with concentrations in biology, economics, and environmental studies. And that kind of developed within me a mind for more of a scientific perspective, but I'm also a very feely person. Relationship has always been my goal. So then what that's developed within me is this desire to understand what it means to be in relationship, but then to also honor how the horse moves, how the horse looks at life. Not necessarily that I studied that piece in university, but it gave me an eye to understand how to look at something from a more biological perspective. And then in my work, I've developed something called relational horsemanship, which is just this principle of really understanding what is it for a horse to be in relationship with us, and what is it for us to be in relationship with them. And this has become kind of my life's work in the personal development of myself, and then constantly seeking to just understand more and more about what horses need, and that so much of what they are presenting in relationships with us is a demonstration of their needs. So changing our lenses, understanding how to look at a horse from a different perspective, in a way that deepens relationship instead of creates conflict and confrontation. And then now I've just seemed to be brought into a light to share that information with people in a variety of ways through teaching clinics and an online platform. And that's where I am today.
Thank you, Josh. Would you like to just say that, tell the viewers that you and Susie actually had the chance to meet a little while ago? Do you want to just explain a little bit about that?
For sure. It's been great, actually. I guess there's been twice now, Sue, that we had to chat. The first time was because we didn't really know each other in the beginning. We both heard of each other through a variety of forms, but then we had a Zoom coffee, which was awesome. And we got to share a little bit. But then when I was at the expo in Colorado, Sue was able to come, and we were able to, just the way the day worked out, we were able to sit and spend over an hour. Like it was quite a bit of time, and it was just kind of set aside, which was beautiful. So we really got to share and personally just recognize the same heart for horses. And obviously we're coming at things from different experiences, and but you can just, I personally was able to just feel such a consistency in the heartbeat behind what we're both trying to do. So I felt like it was just an amazing conversation, and I left there fulfilled.
That's brilliant.
And if I can add to it, it's interesting when you meet somebody that's on your same wavelength, and it's beautiful, because I think both of us came from that very scientific background, because I was an environmental scientist, interestingly enough, which all these very similar things that we have together, and we we went different pathways. I was a rancher, I did environmental stuff, and then I was training horses, all these different things that we did that were very similar to each other. And we came to kind of the same conclusions at the end. And I think that's what's really interesting, is that we all have different journeys, but we can arrive at the same place through a whole different pathway. And just honoring everybody's pathway to where they get to, I think is just beautiful. And I felt like after so many years of not finding people that would listen to these other perspectives on how to interact with horses and all that, is to now see it being embraced so much, and especially by a whole lot of really solid science people that are out there that are saying, yes, here's what we do, and we may do it different, and it may not look the same as what you've been doing, but it's no less valid, and if you choose this path, there's people to support you on that.
And that's lovely that you have this, like you said, there's two different people from different countries, but yet you can have a mutual understanding and respect for each other and about the work that you do, and have there's a common ground there, which is lovely. And that's so that's why I wanted you two to get together. And I thought that'd be exciting. So we are going to run a competition. Now, this is the first time that I've done this, so I'm hoping the technology works. If it doesn't, what I'll do is I will do it manually after the live. So if people want to enter, what they have to do is hashtag heart horse. So that's heart horse. And it'll go into a draw now, as long as the technology works. But if not, don't worry, I'll do this after and I'll contact the person who's won. So there's two prizes tonight. So Josh and Susan have kindly offered a prize, and I'm going to let them introduce what it is they're going to offer. Josh, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to give away a 3-month membership to my master course. So that gives you access to all of my content that we've built so far, and then access to the live webinars that we put on, and then also access to our community.
Wow. Susie?
Well, I feel minimized again. No, I was going to offer 1 or 2 sessions. You guys can decide if you want to 1 or 2 private sessions with me, either virtually, or if you're close, I can do it in person. So that's my offering for today.
Thank you. That's so kind of you to offer that. What I'm going to do is just bear with me a second. Got to make sure that I've so just bear with me. Actually, I'm not sure. Right, I'm going to do that in a second. Okay, so we're going to just do that in a second. So don't worry again. If it doesn't work, I will do this manually. It's going to do it at the end of the interview anyway, but so don't worry. There's 2 prizes, and 2 people is going to win a prize each. Okay, so do we have any questions for Josh or Susie, or for myself? I'm just going to look. There's quite a few people that have joined, which is lovely. You can see these comments, can't you? Can you?
No, I don't see any.
Oh, you can't see the comments. Okay. No. You should be able to see. Okay, so I'm just going
to. I had to switch it from private chat to comments. Susie, I don't know if that works for you, but at the top there was.
Okay. I'll go over here and see what happens. Oh, there we go. Okay.
So Lisa Marie saying hello. Yes, can you see them now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So folks, for everybody that's watching, you'll have to bear with us because technology sometimes gets the better of you. So we're just going to go with the flow and hope everything runs smoothly, but it'll be exciting whatever, and we'll just chat away. So if you do have any questions, if it's for either Josh or Susie or for both of them, please make sure you say, and then we can direct it to the right person.
I was just wanting to, as Susie was mentioning there, the idea of how we come from different places and that then we connect, that this idea of I feel like there's this kind of universal relational way that the earth kind of desires to be and flow and connect. And I feel like that's, so then what it does is it's like what matters then is the heart's desire. And so then it almost doesn't even matter where we come from, but where we come from gives us more opportunity to connect with a variety of people, because then there's kind of like a natural form of connection based on, you know, our information, our education, our learning, but yet there's this way of being together and a way of connecting that can be between horses and people, and it can be between people and people. So then as our hearts desire to get pulled in that direction, we will have to work through the things that have interfered with our ability to be there, which is where there's ups and downs in all of our lives as we navigate that water. But I feel like that's why, you know, we can come from all these different places, because as long as the heart is drawing us to that space, then we will meet, we will connect. I feel like that's the way it is with our horses, in that, you know, when you're working a horse or someone gives you information about what you should do with a horse, and there's this feeling of like, oh, something's not right, or oh my goodness, that speaks to me, that there's this soul pull that allows us to kind of keep tracking towards knowing ourselves better and knowing relationship, because it's actually a way that the earth desires to be. So anyways, it just kind of complements what Dr. Susie was saying earlier in regards to that, like kind of, we kind of have various ways that we'll kind of start, but we kind of end up finding each other, because when the heart is seeking that type of relationship, there is this beautiful path that all of us will walk differently, but will allow us to be able to connect in this earth. And, you know, and it doesn't matter what being it is, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm.
And if I can add to what Josh was saying, just, you know, I think we both came to a place of relational based training, or looking at things in that relational way. Because if we think about it, a lot of times horses have been put in this category of they're prey animals and we're the prey. And so we have to have that type of relationship. But if you think about it, there's a commonality between horses and us, and that's that we're both relational beings too. So we're both seeking a relationship. And that's where I meet the horse with, is on that term of being a relational being, wanting a deep relationship, and the horse is doing the same thing. And so we're finding out, how do we speak this common language between the two of us where we can get both of our needs met, but not having to, you know, I don't like to think of like I have to meet my horse's needs. Instead, I think of, how do I support that horse in any moment in time when it's struggling? How do I support it? Just as I would support a child. If I had a child and I saw it struggling, how would I support that child? By not doing it for them, but by showing them a way through it, through the support that they know they've got from me. I'm going to watch you struggle, but I'm going to help you and guide you along the way. And so I think Josh and I are both in that camp of how we deal with the horses. We're not going to do it for them, but we're going to show them we're here for you, and we'll show you a way. So,
yeah, I think often as a perspective of leadership, or this conversation of leadership, it's that so much to me of true leadership is what I embody, and then what I give off because of that embodiment, which then becomes an example and an opportunity for those around me, whether it's horses or people, to be able to have the space to grow and change. And that's, you know, oftentimes leadership is kind of looked at like, you know, you need to make something happen. You need to make a horse, you know, do a thing. And I feel like that really bridges a transition between different styles of working horses. And I feel like that's the highest point of conversation about, you know, training shouldn't necessarily be about, you know, I use this technique or I use this technique, but do we observe that the horse, when they struggle, is struggling because of something they struggle with within themselves? And I talk about that as, you know, that there's some kind of unmet need within them, that they're feeling disturbed or bothered by, and then it kind of makes them feel so anxious and worried. When I see that, some people would see that the horse is now being misbehaved, they're behaving poorly, or they're needing discipline, or it's that there's something within them that they need to shift. They are desiring peace and they don't have it, and it's kind of driving them nuts, so to speak. And this is what then creates what we would call behavior. But if you see it from the perspective that the horse is just trying their best to get by, and they're not content within themselves, and the goal then is what needs to be done to support helping them understand how do they become content, how do they feel safe, how do they feel better in the relationship versus behavior. This totally transforms your energy, and it will transform the way that you administer any antidote, so to speak, in the relationship, because now the heartbeat of how you think changes the way your energy moves, which now builds a path to relationship and connection rather than confrontation and disagreement.
Right.
And it's one of those things that when you even if you stumble upon it, you notice it, think, oh crikey, what did I do different there? And you feel something from the horse, or you see them change their behavior, and then you start thinking about it again, and then they may sort of go off. The more aware you are, the more aware you are about your own emotions and your own energy, the easier it is to see how that changes either a person or an animal that's with you. Finding out how much and to what degree that can change is what you have to play around with. And to me, it's like a muscle. You have to use it and work with it to find out what is the scale for you personally. Is that something that you would agree with?
Yeah, definitely. Just to kind of add to all that, it's like, so my focus is not so much on the horse. It's like, how do we change ourselves, and what are we looking for in the horse, and how do we feel? I mean, a lot of people, and Josh may agree, it's like you come up and they've shut down that part of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about shut down horses, but we don't talk so much about shut down people who can't experience anymore. And so that's really my focus, is like, if you can't notice and feel, and not just look with your eyes, but feel what's going on inside of that horse at any moment, then you're missing part of the picture. And I like to go through with people and help them to reawaken their natural senses so that they can begin to experience the world in a bigger way than maybe they have been for a while. And society has not been kind to a lot of people as far as, you're not supposed to feel. You're supposed to just be out there and doing your thing and shut down those feelings. And instead, if we go through and say, feelings are okay, feelings help us make decisions. Feelings, believe it or not, are the very first thing we get in our brain, and then we make a determination about what to do about that feeling, and that's called a behavior. So if we deny that we have any feelings, what are we doing? Are we just reacting to our environment the way people think we should, or are we really in tune and noticing everything in our environment and making changes that are appropriate for that? And so for me, and I'm sure Josh too, it's like, I'm a deeply feeling, and I can feel a whole lot of stuff that I don't think people give credit for, but it's only because I've put my attention on honing that sense. And like you touched on, Ronnie, it's like, it's a muscle that people haven't used for a while, but it's still there. And if you can start to reawaken that in people, they go, oh, I can feel that. I always go, you can feel it. I know you can. And we'll work through that. And when they can start to communicate through feelings with their horse, that opens up a whole nother avenue of things that they can do and ways they can support their horse.
Mm-hmm. I just love that. I totally agree that that there's just such a need for people, that this work is really about discovering relationship with others, but also just with ourselves. And you called it a muscle, this idea of feel. And often what I've called it is an organ. It's like, feel is an organ within us. It's a thing inside of us. Now, what happens is most feely beings, having not had their feel mentored at younger ages or throughout, then have traumatic events that they use this organ so deeply in, and it impacts us so greatly that now our feel gets so connected to these traumatic experiences, negative experiences, and now is being used primarily by our self-preservation. So when our feel is activated, or the organ of our feel is activated by our self-preservation, now our feel will be hot to anything that we think will hurt us, which is then one of the biggest reasons why I felt in my experience that people will close off, because now they're so careful using their high form of feel to protect themselves against any kind of trauma.
Yeah.
So then, oh man, how many ways can we be hurt? Well, our feel is going to be ready for that. But by using it and recognizing that it is an organ, and that it is that we have trained it towards that, as we begin recognizing that our feel can be used for many beautiful things, and that as we go through our inner process, and I just love what you're saying about, this idea of, like really recognizing what's going on within ourselves, because that feel, that organ can be used to feel and connect in any way we desire. We just have to then go through a certain process to relinquish our feel from self-preservation alone and recognize, yes, it can serve that. And I feel like that's very connected to feelings. It's like feelings come up when our process has happened a certain way and it produces a feeling. And so this is be very informative for us. It can then also be used to develop connection and the feelings that come from connection. And, so it can be used in so many beautiful ways. And as we begin to honor that we can use that and feel it within ourselves, what happens is we can start getting more in touch instead of wanting to shut it off because it's always focusing on negative, anxious, anxiety, these things that are more things we don't want to experience, which then creates this disconnection within ourselves. But just recognizing that it is an organ, and as you train it, you can train it to sense and connect to whatever you desire when you become liberated from a more self-preserving state. So I'm sure you have something to add to that, Sue, but that's like there's something within that that's so important.
And and to just touch on it, absolutely. It's like people are not coming to either one of us, I think, because everything has worked in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it hasn't worked is because of these things that we hold in ourselves that have not allowed us to grow or to expand or what. So I think we're both working with people through those things. So it's not necessarily we're just working with horses, but we're working on the entire relationship. You can't come into a healthy relationship if one or both of the partners are not healthy. And then there's all sorts of game playing that happens and ways to have people, the other person meet your needs that you can't seem to verbalize or tell them about, but you've got this need. So you play a game in order to get your need met. And that's not a healthy relationship. And I think Josh and we're kind of like the counselors. Now we're not only doing family counseling, but we've added horses to the family counseling. And when you begin to heal both you and the horses come with their own bit of defensive stuff from past experiences. And I work on that end with the horses to help them let go of their traumatic events so they can feel again and in a healthy way. And, when you get then the person healthier, the horse healthier, then they begin to experience these magnificent relationships where you don't have to have so much effort because you're not constantly wondering, what do I do now to get this need met? What behavior should I do now? And the horse is doing the same thing. What behavior can I do to get my need met? And it's never been met. Those are the ones that don't have their needs met will generally shut down then, right? It's like, well, if nobody's going to listen, I'm just going to go into myself and just self-preserve here in this state, and the world will go around me and things will happen to me, but I won't feel them. So the horses do the same thing as we do, as far as, okay, I can't handle that much, I'm going to shut down. And I just love to really help the horses. When I do it, it's like release all that stuff that they've got, because everywhere that they hold attention, it's going to show up in their body. It's going to show up in their behavior. They're going to have an evasion. They're going to have something that happens that reflects to me, yeah, he's holding something there. How can we help this horse release that? And, I, again, don't do it for the horse. I'm one of those people that never enables a behavior. I'm going to say, hey, I noticed that. What are you going to do? I'm going to hold the space for you to do that in a loving, kind way without judgment. And I think that's the same thing that both of us are doing. It's like we are working in that place where when we're doing this, there's no judgment about anybody's trauma, anybody's past experiences. We're coming now and dealing with what's in front of us and how do we heal what's in front of us.
Mm.
And I'm not healing it. I hate to use the word heal even because I just step out of it. It's like all I'm doing is holding a space for this to happen and maybe saying, hey, would you try that? Or, go try that. So.
Oh man, my brain is just going. I
I'm
love
sorry.
it. No, it's great. It's great because I just feel like there's just that the scientist loves progression, loves process, loves kind of alignment of this kind of leads to that. So talking about needs, because I truly feel like there are needs. There's needs in us. There's needs in horses. But the question is how do we most impact needs? And I feel like, yeah, the conversation of if we talk about meeting needs before we talk about what's going on within ourselves, then you can have a negative attachment to trying to meet a horse's needs and doing it so that you can feel better. So now if your horse feels better, then I can feel better. Well, this is now a negative attachment to the observation of a horse's need. But when you recognize that the greatest empowerment of change with anything around you is to find your own center and find your own okayness, to meet your own needs within yourself, that releases the highest frequency of energy around you, which that frequency sets the tone for things around you to change. So you were kind of saying kind of loosely, Sue, about, then we'll do this or we'll do that with the horses because that actually isn't even the most important part, which then can seemingly lessen the priority of training. Because as we've observed, when someone who has an energetic capacity and a level of aptitude within themselves walks up to a horse, the horse can almost change in their presence because of that frequency. So then, all of a sudden now, by energetic awareness and energetic, priority or focus within ourselves, the changes begin to happen because all we had to do was change the frequency. So then the art is, how do we change within ourselves so that we can lay that opportunity out? So then you almost see sequence. So then to the degree that we dive into the inner work dictates the degree that we can change those things around us. Because what happens when a horse does a thing, it triggers energy movement in us. So that either charges us with an anxiety or a worry or an empathy, or excuse me, a sympathy, or, it'll charge something in us. And whatever that charged, if you're unaware of what it charged, now you're actually kind of being led by them, losing the ability to be with yourself. So one of the arts is being able to be with yourself and sense how do you want to feel? How would you like to feel? So that then you are able to control yourself first. Because if there is an inability to control ourselves, then it's very challenging for us to lay out the opportunity for something to change around us.
Precisely. And, to that point, it's like we came from different places, but it's like that's what my focus is. It's like emotional fluency in ourselves and the ability to hold that particular frequency that's created for extended amounts of time is what is part of this. First of all, the recognition I'm having, I just got triggered. I have people go back, stop, reset yourself, go back to what were you wanting to project in your energy field for you. I never send a single thing to the horse because, like Josh is saying, every energy we create in ourselves creates a frequency that everything around us is going to notice. So as soon as we change our frequency, we're going to change everybody around us. They're going to notice, especially a horse, because it's highly tuned to changes in the energy field. So we have to be aware, what are we projecting at this time? If we go with the horse, when I was saying I don't play games with a horse, a lot of the games horses play with us is to knock us off our center. Oh, you're not really the leader. I'm a leader internally, not externally. I'm internally. My stability is my leadership. So if I get knocked off by a horse, I'm going to go back and reestablish in myself, I'm the leader in the energy. And therefore, I'm going to set the tone of what the energy is here in this moment. And the horse is going to entrain to that. they like to see somebody who is stable. And they will, I always call it drive-bys. A lot of times I'll be there in a new horse and it's like, I'm used to playing this game. And I go, I don't play games. And the horse will come by and try to trigger me into another emotion, because once they can grab my emotion, they got me, because they've got control now. And it's like, they'll try to get me off center. And I'm just like, no, that's a nice try. Don't play that game. And they walk off. And sometimes they get really mad when they walk off, because it's like, you're not playing by the rules of the game. And I just stand there as like, I don't know how to play the rules. I don't know the rules. I don't know this game, play dumb. And I just hold my space, and they come back and they may try a couple more times to like, does this scare you? Like, no, not really. No. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, thank goodness. And you can see like them just relax into it, going, wow, I tested that person. She didn't waver. She stayed in that place, and I can feel safe with that person, because she can be a leader, because no matter what I did, she didn't waver. And that is a skill that, I mean, it's not something you just start with, oh, today I'm going to be this. No, it takes time to establish that you don't get triggered, or if you do, that immediately you can recognize it and go back and get your stability back, and whatever energy you're wanting to be in. So it's a whole different theory of, I think, what leadership in the past looked like was, how strong are you, and how much can your body language portray your strength? And I'm like, I'll go out there, I'm 5'1", and the horse immediately, doesn't matter how big he is, it's like, whoa, you're not messing around, because your internal strength is really strong, and you know where you're going, you know what you're going to do, and you're sure you're going to accomplish it. And that's leadership with a horse to me. And it can, like Josh was saying, can happen instantaneously, because that's the energy you carry into everything you do.
Wow. I'm smiling away because the word trigger, I like that word, because when you say it, you know that if your energy changes within yourself, or an emotion comes up, you know that you've been triggered by something. And so I'm not perfect at all, but I'm a work in progress. But I know that if something happens, or my mood changes, something's triggered me, and it can be a small thing or a large thing. And Toots the other day, and as you were talking about that, Susie, I thought that's what she was doing. She was pushing me, which she was actually, both a little bit physically and emotionally. And I'd literally come in from a day at work, and when I'm there, my head's full of thoughts, and I go to Toots and I feed it, but I go off and do the field. And she was being a bit pushy, and I was like, and sometimes I would react, and I thought, no, I'm just going to do what I'm doing. You can do what you're doing. I'm going to do what I'm doing. And I was very, I was at distance, a little bit distance with her. So non-emotional, not as emotional. That's the correct word. So she was like, oh. And she was following me, but she was sort of walking around me, and she was coming, and then she was walking off, and I was going, you do what you want to do, I'm doing this. And I wasn't actually saying that, I was just doing that. I was matter of fact. And she was getting annoyed because she wasn't pushing my buttons to what she did the week before. And it was so funny, because I carried on doing what I'm doing. I says, right, I'm going down here now, Toots. And she was like looking at me, and then she walked up to me as if to say, oh. So I put my hand out, and I goes, there you go. And then I carried on doing what I was doing. And then some days, so when you talk about practicing what that center is, sometimes I'm very much where I go to Toots, and I'll do what I need to do. And sometimes I'll just sit on the floor in the field, and I'll just sit there, and I'll close my eyes, and I'll just do some breathing. And if she's at the top of the field, sometimes she'll walk down, and she'll sort of lower her head and have a little snooze with me. But I'm not asking her to do that. I'm doing that for me. And they're the moments when she comes to connect. Because, as you said, the energy is centered, it's balanced, and it's calm. and she's happy to be there. Sometimes that's so nice, and you open your eyes and you sit and you see them there, that you get excited and you think, oh, and then you feel the energy rising, and then they almost go, okay, now I'm going to go away because I can feel it rising. And it's really funny because the more aware you are and the more you play with it, sometimes the difference feels bigger than it did before. And I think this is what's coming into my head now. So I don't know if this is information from me or external information. But what happens is, so please correct me if I'm wrong, because you're aware of it, the gap, you notice the other end more, which makes it feel bigger. Whereas before, it would just be part of the day. Does that make sense to you too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it's just, so many thoughts again, but absolutely. As we begin to unpack ourselves, the space between and the other, there's a richness that grows in our awareness, and I think it awakens us to more. And I feel like one of the things in regards to what you were talking about earlier, Sue, just in regards to the conversation, I have begun to look at the conversation as a horse learning us. So what will happen is they're going to engage us. They're going to feel us because they want to know us. They want to observe what feel we have to give. So they will present themselves energetically, spatially, mentally. You'll feel them through your thoughts, through your energies, through the space. And what they're doing is they're learning you, which to me gives even more importance to what you were talking about, Sue, when you were sharing how important it is for us to not necessarily focus so much on the horse, but to focus on what we're presenting. Because when the horses engage us, they're observing my own aptitude energetically and what I would have to provide them. And I feel like that's what horses are doing when it appears that they are, pushing each other around in the pasture. It's more that they are learning who has a greater sense of themselves and confidence to be able to manage life. And that's what the desire for horses is that they would be able to be with and around a creature that has an aptitude energetically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all of these things. That energy flows through all of these pieces. So we can grow and develop in so many ways energetically. But when they are engaging us, they are learning us, they're feeling us, and that can trigger us in a variety of ways, but that's just the horse's probe to feel us on that level. So it's like, this is something that's very big to unpack. But what that's done for me is that I've observed, and I feel like space is such an important conversation because it's often conversed about as an emotional experience in a negative way. But our ability to be within our own space, to be within ourselves in a certain way, and then to be in our own space is a great vulnerability, but demonstrates a great level of self-awareness and confidence to just be within ourselves and be within our space, that they are authentically connected. Now a horse can feel us at a more distant level because they don't have to get so close. So oftentimes when horses feel like they need to get so close to us, it's because a lot of times we're not necessarily resonating outside of our body in a space they can feel. So then they will engage us more, which then goes back to think about what you're giving off, be within your own space so that you are presenting something that the horse can feel safe with, that they can feel calm around, that your energy would be in somewhat a greater concentration than the anxiety within them. So it starts to set this beautiful tone and what I found is by looking at it that way, it drops the emotional interpretation in people. Because a lot of times when a person feels like the horse is being bad or we tone it in a certain way, it kind of causes people to lose their patience at some point and say, just stop it. Versus if the horse is still probing and they're still looking, then it's still on me to continue doing the work and continue to resonate my energy into the space so the horse can feel my intentions, not just stay out of my space, because we don't necessarily need the horse to stay out of our space. We need to develop interaction energetically, that we can connect with them and that they can feel us. And then when that happens, Ronnie, you said when you sat in the field and you sat and you got into your breathing and you focused on stilling your mind, that is one way to create authenticity, that your insides and your outsides became the same. And then all of a sudden, you were doing it with such concentration that another being desired to be in that and took on your energy. To me, that is the greatest demonstration of leadership. Now, the challenge is then to do that, and I call this proactive meditation, is to begin doing that in life, that we can actually have that state and we could go for a walk with our horse, or we could ask the horse a thing, but that we could be so self-aware of what it is we're giving off. And I believe, Sue, that's what you're talking about, is that's like, don't stop focusing on what you want your horse to do, because it isn't the point. Focus on what you're giving off in the process. And then let the horse experience that. Let them feel you. They're going to come to you because they're wanting to feel you, and they need to feel you. And that should cause you to become aware of yourself, not focused on the horse. Because as soon as you focus on what's happening around you, generally you'll go back to old triggers. But if you use that to draw you to the work you've been doing, it frees you to liberate yourself to a new mind. And I believe that to be a really important kind of mental shift that I've observed for myself and for others has really been a valuable piece to step forward.
Absolutely. And just to add what Josh is saying, it's like you learn this through the horse, because the horse is such a great bio-neurofeedback machine to where you are at energetically at any moment. It's going to give you information faster than an interpretation from in the office hooked up to an EEG. It's going to be pretty slow. They're going to have to interpret what were you doing, and then you have to remember what was I doing at that moment. No, the horse is instantaneously telling you where you're at. And I think it's just such a great tool, because what you can do is not only as you begin to change people ask me, oh, should I just do this when I'm with my horse? And I'm like, no, this is about how you live your life every moment, and that you strive to create this energy around yourself at every moment of your life. And you begin to practice, and then your awareness expands beyond just that time with your horse to the time you're doing anything, and you see what your energy does, that when you know where you're at, how it changes those around you and what their attitude, you can see that people, even if they pretend they don't feel stuff, they can feel the energy, and they know people. You don't even have to smile, do anything. You're just in that space. And then all of a sudden you notice people have changed. And that's what's really cool, is to know that you've got, I don't want to say power, because that seems to be gives a little manipulation context to this. I am never manipulating anybody with my energy. I'm going to be in my space. I'm going to be doing the best I can at every moment, projecting the best that I can, but with awareness. And it's not like I don't get triggered by people, but my job then, knowing what I do, it's like, I'm going to take this knowledge from what Josh and I are, teaching, and I'm going to apply it to everywhere in my life and see how that makes my life different and my interactions with everybody different, because we can't change anybody. We cannot change anybody, but we can change us. And I choose to walk in the world a different way. And it's a challenge. I'm not saying it's not a challenge to go out there and try to be, can I just stay in this space and know where I'm at? And as you begin to do this, it becomes how you are, and you can go with the flow. And living in the flow is the most beautiful place ever. Being with your horse in the flow, riding in the flow, interacting with your horse. It's beyond words that we can use as human beings, because I don't think there's words to describe that place. But that's where we're working toward. I think both of us are trying our best to teach people. Really, what we're teaching is the flow, and the ultimate expression of this, I think.
That was beautiful. Sorry, Joss, I was just going to interrupt it's so funny, as you were talking, Toots literally was coming in, and when you was talking, I can't remember which bit it was, Susie, but I wrote it down, and she was saying mixed messages. We get mixed messages. So I was listening and trying to ask, what does she mean? And so just because I do animal communication, I have to say this, and I do say this all the time, doesn't mean to say I get it right with my own horse. And I sometimes it feels harder depending what's going on. But then I get those windows of opportunity, and it's not intentional. It happens, and it's like, oh wow, that was just beautiful. And then you, like I said, you notice the gaps, that you notice the difference seem to be bigger. But what she was, and you said consistent, so she was saying about consistency, but then she said about having both feet in the same place, not having one foot in one world and one foot in another. You need to have both feet in the same place. So to me, I'm interpreting that as be fully where you are, be fully present, and be fully committed at that time, at that very second, to what you're doing. And it should be, as Josh and Susie said, it should be, where are you? Where are you sat? How are you feeling? Because you can't change another animal, the same as you can't change a person. You can't be responsible for a person, only for yourself. And that's where you have to pull it back to, because it starts within. So sorry for interrupting you, Joss, but I wanted to, before I forgot about that, I wanted to get that through. Yeah, she's it's funny. She's communicating, but she's also listening.
That's great. Sue just explained it as flow, and I explained it as the universal language. That there is this language that we can all be within, and it doesn't matter if you're a human or a horse or whatever. And I think there's different forms and different levels of that communication. And flow is the energetic language. It's the way that connection is developed through the movement of energy. And to me, that's the place that I desire to be, because there's such fulfillment there, it's such richness. And I think that's because, especially for creatures that desire connection, when we get into that space with another being, it's more like a spiritual connection. There's a real richness to that, and so then I think that's where we're drawn. The reason that us doing our own work matters so much is because until we have the ability to become still in the presence of noise, so to speak, so that's where meditation or stillness of mind, breath work, calms us. And then the second stage is, can I then enact my own calmness in the presence of something that is not calm? And that can be practiced in life. It can be practiced in the grocery store or in traffic. It can also be practiced with our horses. And Sue, I think that's what you were attesting to when you were talking about the horse kind of coming in and out. You know, it's not really about what the horse is doing necessarily, but is in the presence of that, do I have the ability to stay calm, to retain my own awareness of self? And this is a question that I encourage everybody to ask all the time, is when you feel, okay, so a lot of times we can get calm and still in the beginning, but then when life starts to hit us, all of a sudden now we are associating our lack of calmness to the experience or to a person, when, you know, generally speaking, I know there's exceptions to this, but generally I have the beautiful privilege of feeling how I desire. So if something happens, I have the ability to respond in whatever way I choose. And that's to me, that was a great liberation for me to recognize that. And then it was like, all of a sudden it's not, I can't just blame my horse for what's going on, and I can't blame a person. I now become beautifully responsible, and that's a liberated experience. So now I have the ability to say, okay, well, how do I want to respond in this moment? So first of all, we get quiet and we start to work on our calmness. And then secondly, I recognize that I can be a thing in a moment. And when the horse is struggling, and now that's where the greatest form of leadership comes, and we enter the universal language, because now I can give the horse, or I can create in my space, a new feeling. And it doesn't actually, you do not need your horse to become calm. You do not need the environment to change, because if you need that, that's an unhealthy need. Because now I will try to manipulate the horse to become calm so I can feel better. And see, this is a negative form of need. There's positive and negative forms of needs. The positive side of that comes when I can get to that place where I am okay within myself. And when I am okay, even if the horse is not okay, then now I can support the horse to be truly okay, because I'm not trying to twist or manipulate. And I feel like, Sue, that's what you were kind of talking about in the beginning of that. That's like it's not disconnected. I'm not disconnected from the horse. There's a great empathetic desire. It's a knowledge. When you realize that you are most valuably impacting your relationships by not needing something from them necessarily in its negative form. You unlock the ability to resonate that relationship into a higher form of communication and connection. And to me, that's the universal language, where we are now in pure states. And that would be my desire with the horses. So then when the horse is reaching for us in our space, I am giving connection. I am giving opportunity, but it's in the higher form, not the negative form. The negative form is, all right, I feel like, Sue, when you were talking about like, no, I'm not going there, because that creates that negative banter, like the back and forth negative banter. What we want to do is get our relationships to a place of the higher form of communication, a higher form of connection, that yes, I'm here to be, and I'm here to connect. And I'm going to do it in a way that allows for universal connections rather than kind of negative forms of back and forth. Anyways, that's
and just to add on that, it's like when I'm in that space, it's like the horse comes over and I'm in neutral. It's like I may block them from, if they wanted to nip at me or something, I'm going to block it. But I'm checking in. Did I engage in any way, shape, or form to this request he was doing to get me to fight with him? And it's like, I'm not fighting. I don't fight. And so that's my stance, and it's in my energy. Like, I don't fight. And I think talking about, there's so much words of the connection, there's so many different levels of connection. People throw that word out, and do they know, or what is it? And when I wrote my book, I didn't use the word connection. I used communion, because it's what you're talking about, Josh, about it's a higher form of connection. It's beyond connection. It's heart, mind, soul. You know each other. You know what each other are going to do. That's communion. And to me, that's what I'm striving for, not merely just a connection. And, and I think that's true in our human relationships too. We've decided, because these two people walk beside each other, they're connected. They could be totally disconnected from each other, but they're doing the same things, and they're doing those things together. But if they're communing, they know what each other feels. They know how each other are responding at any moment. And that is a higher form, just what you're talking about. And I think Josh and I, we use different terms, but we're talking about that same universal place of, this is beyond what we've been taught to think about with our horses. And it is so possible with any being, is to truly commune with them rather than just connect. And that's probably why people want me to do big clinics, or, lots of people. I don't want to do that, because I can't commune in that way. I want that really intimate communion, which, to Josh's, what you're talking about, if that's not safe for you, it's going to feel really awful. You're going to reject that. You don't want that. And that way you go, no, can't commune, but connection's okay. I can go that far, but I can't go fully into it with the communion. And it's, I think we both suffer with, a lot of times I think, what are the words to describe what I experience? And it isn't there's no human words to describe what I experienced. Like, I couldn't even begin to, and any word I used would not fully express what was happening. And I don't know, I'm sure you have that too. It's like we have this really complicated job of trying to put into words something that's very complex and complicated, with so many different facets in it, and then we're adding another species to the mix. So, I struggle for years, like, how do I even go out there and explain what I do? Because I can't even explain what I do, because it's never the same thing. It's just that human, that horse, us together. What are we going to do? I don't know. Until we get into it, I have no idea.
Yeah. And I love to give the freedom, because I know that this inspires people. It's like, wow, man, that's such what I desire. I love to think of this the same way I think of threshold. So, this conversation of the word threshold, it's like a line, and the horse is either thinking or they're not thinking. And, being in this type of relationship, the way we're describing it, it's like you're there or you're not. And I want just to lighten that so that doesn't seem intense for people. Like, it's like, well, I'll never get there because it's like I have to all of a sudden arrive. This is just a way. It's a way of being. But you can have moments. Okay, Ronnie, you described it. So for some reason, you were compelled to go sit and be still, and your horse joined you. And in that moment, you may have found yourself at a more intensely connected moment. Now, you may also have a moment when your horse struggles and you take a breath, and you're working in the same way, but you might not be so deeply into the space, but it is the same thing. And it's important for everybody to recognize that any time, this is what I try to encourage my students and myself in, anytime I make some shift within my mind and body to change my pattern to a more centered, connected way, I am succeeding because you're changing the patterns of your brain. So instead of going into something tense and rigid and old-minded, or even just holding tension in our bodies, we take a breath. You're taking a step in the direction of connection, into this step towards, now this is really beautiful, because now we can say, yes, connection would be the beginning, but communion would be a more deeply rich experience in it. So in some moments, maybe all we're going to achieve is connection, which is great, because you're changing your brain patterns from going to old self-preserving mentalities to more connected mentalities. And that will always be leading you towards a more communion-based state. And that involves connecting more on the universal scope. But in one moment, it might seem small, but it is just as big, because you're changing your patterns and you're working in that direction. And then the next moment, it might seem deep and rich. But just to lighten from people, the moments that are deep and rich and then the moments that are not, are all moving you in the same direction. They're all moving you in the same direction. And anytime you're making those shifts, you are doing the work. So don't minimize, because you'll see, okay, well, this person talks about this experience, and then, well, I've never had that experience, so I guess I'm not there. It's not like that at all. The more you do the work within yourself, and the more you begin to change your brain patterns in the moments, okay, and that's where I say, well, I call it meditation and proactive meditation. Whatever you do to develop stillness, and you do the inner work, at whatever level you can, you're succeeding. And then whatever level you can start then changing that mind frame and perspective with your horsemanship or with people, you are succeeding. When you can start enacting that, you are succeeding. You are moving in the direction of transformed relationships. So I just want to encourage everybody with that, because sometimes, and you might have opinion about this, but I find that these conversations are so rich and they just draw people. And I think that's super important. It's very important to be drawn to that kind of higher sense of, it's actually real. This feeling in my soul is real. That voice has a place. It's like, it's calling me. And then life kind of tells us maybe that's not true. These conversations tell you that, yes, it's true. It's real. There is that space. It's beautiful. And then in every little moment, you're being transformed more so to that perspective, whether it's a small shift, a small choice, a small thought, or a big experience. They're all leading you the same way. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of soften the space with that, because there would be no desire for anyone to feel like they can't achieve because they seem so far from it.
And just to add to that, Josh, it's like, I think that I was looking into all of this energy stuff when I was about 12 years old, which is really odd. I mean, talk about like your purpose showing up and you just ignored it. But I studied intensely, like everything about how the brain works, the body, the nervous system, all of this, and adding that with the spiritual like aspects and what are their perspectives on it. And over the years, I've gone through many different journeys down many different paths, and I gained experience on that. And I think what you and I are both here doing now is we're in a way streamlining that and going, here's a way you could get there without spending 50 some years like I did. That's my job here, I think, is from coming from the university and knowing the science of like the brain and the nervous system and psychology and all that, and putting that together and going, yeah, but the university makes it complex, like it can't happen. My job is to go, here's a very complex concept. How can I parse that down so that it's a very simple thing that you can do? And most of the exercises I have people do have 3 things that they have to do. Just 3, you know, everybody can remember 3 things. And those 3 things, I try to make them as profound on the nervous system in the, you know, on both us and the horse. So every exercise I have is both for the person and the horse. So you're working on you both at the same time, but it's only 3 things you have to do. So it's nothing like, I never want people in their brain analyzing, what should I do next? What are the 52 steps? I don't remember that one. I have to go look. I want you to be totally in your body and not in your analytical mind, with your horse. And that's what all my exercises are. Keep you out of your analytical mind. Keep you in your feeling body, in that place of knowing yourself, that stillness. They have to practice stillness with most of the exercises I do. So it's all of these things. And guess what? Stuff bubbles up when you're in your stillness. Your stuff, your horse's stuff bubbles up in the stillness and it comes to the surface. And what do we do with that? We usually find a way to distract ourselves because we don't want to feel what bubbled up. The horse will do the same thing. I don't want to feel what bubbled up. And so, you know, when it comes to the surface, then there's some things we can do to, you know, help you both get through this. But yeah, this whole thing about it will take my lifetime. No, just Josh's point, every little thing that you do builds on the next thing, and it's going to build and build. And all of a sudden you're going to go, oh my gosh, I can't even remember how hard it used to be. Now it's easy. And just speaking, and I think Josh would say this too, for myself, I don't regret a single moment of the hard times that I had, because I gained so much knowledge from those experiences, those setbacks, those challenges, those things. And I don't want to rob anybody of that. And people tell me, why can't you just make it easy the whole way? No, that's not the point of this journey. You don't come on this journey with Josh and I if you want the easy route. If you want to be in a totally different space when you come out the other end, that's what we're here for. So I don't want to speak for you, but I feel that from what you're saying, because I know what your heart is, Josh. I mean,
yeah, 100%. I feel like for those for those, I don't believe this way is for everybody. I don't.
No.
And I truly feel like for those that are to be unlocked or desire to be unlocked from a more self-preserving way of being, which means that we're just guarding ourselves, we're protecting ourselves, we put up our walls, we don't feel our own space, we disconnect from the world, we're just trying to get by. There are those that would prefer to stay there, and their life will be what it is. For those that are destined to be unlocked, if things were simple, if there was no challenges, why would we change anything? We would sit in a half discontent state, and it wouldn't pull us. We wouldn't have any desire. But it's when the snow globe shakes that we then have the opportunity to realize that we can change, or we would desire something different. We would, and I'm not necessarily saying I'm getting into understanding why things happen that happen. I'm not. That's a whole conversation in itself. But I mean, when we are faced with challenge, we are faced with opportunity, and it's those opportunities that just ask us that simple question: do I desire something different than what I'm feeling right now? Would I desire something more? And I believe that's such a beautiful question, you know, and it always starts with my own space. You know, what can I do within myself to transform my perspective? And as soon as we do that, you become ultimately powerful, because now when you can control, I say control is a very strong word, but when you can get within yourself to a place where you can be your own guide, that you can direct your own energy, that you can be the director of your own thinking. Now you become tremendously powerful, because Now you're not controlled by all the things around you. And predominantly we started this conversation based on horsemanship, and somehow it's taken its way to now being more of a universal concept, because that's truly what it is to both of us, I believe. And the goal being, so then what does it mean to lead our horses? What does it mean to be with our horses? And it means the more we can get to that place where we can recognize that it is not about this bantering interaction. It's not about trying to get the horse to go down the trail. It's about what type of example are you setting for your horse in how you handle the things that come up. So it's more about, it's like a way, with, parentheses, it's like how do we handle our own way? And that's always the question I ask everyone. Is the first thing that we can do is recognize, what is our way? What is our way? And your way will be demonstrated by what you do with the calmness of your own thinking. How much do you love yourself, your own mind, being with yourself? Okay. And then what do I do then when I interact with the world? These are all really important questions, and all with empathy, like not with criticism or harshness, but just to start asking the question, can I be with myself? And then when I am in environments, how then do I authentically show up? Because that to me is what leadership truly is, because then you transform your space, and the spider web that is you energetically now starts to team with new energy and new mind and new possibilities. But if the old, if we don't do any work within, then the old energies continue to give off the old thinking styles, the old triggers, and the best we can get is what's going on within us. So it's just to me, it's so beautiful, and it's so encouraging, I believe, because then all of us can do it. All of us can do it.
Right.
And as you begin to kind of believe that you have that within you in any moment to transform your thinking, to transform your energy, and change the currency of the conversation. I talk about this, the law of intensity, and it says that whomever's energy is in greater concentration in a moment would generally lead. So if my horse is struggling, and their struggle is greater than my ability to stay within myself, then I start to struggle within myself. Now, it doesn't matter what technique I'm trying to use. I have already relinquished myself to that horse. And that is what I believe is happening when horses are bantering, when they're back and forth, when the horse comes to us and they check on us spatially. It is to observe us, to know us, because they really do want to know, are you a being I can be safe with? Are you a being that allows for a calm space, or are you not? And so this, when the horses are doing this, it should be these little, Sue, you talked about it when you were discussing emotions and feelings. Like, these are things to become aware of. It's not bad to have. It's the same with the feelings that come when someone engages you spatially. What did that bring up for you? Was it immediately like, get out of my space? And then you hear this a lot in horsemanship. It's like, don't you let them disrespect you. Don't you let them, because now we're toning when they engage us that when they're searching for relationship, as I would say, they're searching for connection. We say, don't do it. So we're actually now, because of mind frames, I talk about interpretations a lot in my work, because the interpretation that you make changes your thinking, changes your energy. And that becomes the limit to the depth of the connection. But if you transform that and you can see that differently, now you have the ability to resonate that on a higher level. So then that becomes the ultimate power, the ultimate beauty in relationship, is that we fully become aware of the power that we have within ourselves. And as we kind of give over to that mind, then almost anything around us starts to shift.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, thank you, Josh. That was in depth and well spoken, both of you, Susie and Josh. As you were talking, this was like a collective message, and it was basically, we don't understand why you would hurt yourself, but that sounds like just a few words. But the feeling with that phrase that just give me is, they see the confusion and they see the misunderstanding and the hurt, and they don't understand why we do that to each other, and then we do that to them unintentionally at times. and they don't understand that. And as I'm explaining this, it's almost like there's a council of energetic horses. I see them as horses, but it's energetic, and they are jointly saying this from their hearts, because they feel the pain of what we are trying to do when we're in that place, and they are trying to reach us, but we make it difficult because I'm feeling really emotional as I'm getting this. I'm sensing it, but they're saying it very, very strongly, but it's not like strong, firm. It's strong in their being, in their essence, and it's beautiful. And they so want to for us to feel it as humans. They want us to feel what they feel when they're in that place as a herd and as a group of horses. They want us to feel that. So when they're communicating with me, it's more the knowing. So I can communicate with a horse that I see, and sometimes, as you were talking earlier, Josh, about there's different levels of balance. So you can communicate with the horse, but then you communicate with the stronger essence and the all-knowing part of them, and sometimes there's a different slight conversation because of where they are. Does that make sense? Yeah, I can. Yeah. Wow. Sorry, I just have to give it as it comes, because otherwise I'll forget, and then but they can my word is connection. That's what they did. So shall we see if we've got any questions? We've got so many people that have commented, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much, guys, for I don't think I'm going to have time to put them all on, but we've got so many. Can I ask a question? So please ask a question to Josh or Susie, and we'll put it to. Can you see the comments now, by the way?
Yeah.
You can see them. So is there anybody that that you want to respond to?
Sorry, the questions. So there's lots scrolling by.
Yeah.
When a person asks a question, would they then speak, or would they write it and we would respond to what's written, Ronnie?
Just write the question. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's probably easier.
Okay.
So if anybody has a question, if you want to comment, and then Josh or Susie can answer that. So if I roll this down a little bit and see if anybody's asked.
I just see one here that says, do we ask the horses to listen to us, or do we need to listen to them? Do you want to answer that first, Susie?
Oh, say that one again, because I just got distracted. See what happens when you get distracted? I was reading the bottom one, is connection through the higher realm and in the sixth sense. So could I answer that one first, and then we can
Absolutely.
go back to the other one, because that was where my mind just kind of went to that one.
Awesome.
So for Joanne, it really is, if you want to think of it as sixth sense, I think of it in terms of the brain, and where we're at as far as our brain waves and what brain waves we're producing, is that when we get down to low alpha theta brain waves, we are now have access to that other realm in a bigger way, so that by doing this quiet work, by being able to get there, we can now access what I call the internet of intuition. And that's the higher realm. And that is where we communicate in this other way to the max degree, because now we're connected to the entire field of energy in that space. And that's what's a beauty thing about our brain, is when we know that we can do that we can go from different brain waves, and each one of those has a specific purpose to it, and that we know what that feels like and what we experience when we're in a particular type of brain wave. And when we can get ourselves quiet and start to experience that lower brain wave, slower brain waves, we can access things we didn't know we could. We have information that we didn't know we had. And it's getting down into our subconscious, but also into that other realm of access to another place, another dimension, realm, whatever word you want to use for it. I work in that space, And it's again, it takes time and practice to be able to speak, be present, be doing things, but also have a theta brainwave going on, or even a gamma. And that is where I work at my best, in that space. And it's really in there. I'm now let my conscious mind go, and I'm working from total intuition and speaking from my knowledge and accessing all parts of my brain here for information knowledge that's coming up. It's like, what do I do now? How do I do with this? But yes, when you can get slower brainwaves, you can access this realm more easily. So it is what scientists or lay people call a sixth sense, because you're activating another sense. And it's not an unworldly sense. It's not a sense that is way out there that only a few people have. No, everybody has it. Everybody has that capacity, because we all have that ability in our brain to do that. So if you think of it as a natural progression of your brain, it's just another state of consciousness that you can access. And if you think of it that way, it's no longer put in that woo-woo, which I hate that word, woo-woo. It's not in the woo-woo realm. It's in our capacity as a human being to be able to do that. And when we're shamed for it, we don't go there. But I don't care if anybody shames me anymore, and I'm there a whole lot of the time, and it's a beautiful place to kind of exist. But if I need to do mathematics, I can't do it there. I have to go back to beta brainwaves so I can do some calculations and think. So just hopefully that answered that question about, is it a different realm? Is it a sixth sense? So
if I can add to that too, I see it, you're saying it as waves. I see it as doors. I feel like our brain loves boxes, and most of us through life have only learned how to communicate and exist with certain boxes. So we generally would go through certain doors, and our brains love patterns. So it's like, okay, well, when this happens, this is the door I walk through. And then we believe that that's life. Well, what I hope that we're doing in this conversation is we're helping you recognize that there's more doors to choose. You can choose different patterns. Now there's different ways to open up doors, which is what makes it seem like a higher sense, because we have to do this thing of calming. And I saw a question about, do we have to do active meditation? Kimberly asked that. We have to do higher, like active meditation. And I don't believe you do. It's more so about just getting yourself into a space where you can do whatever you have to do to calm your mind. And as you do that, you start opening that door. Now, the art of it is then, are you able to deal with the thoughts that come? And do the thoughts that come trigger old boxes and take you into another door again? Or do you gain the ability to start learning the skill of centering your own mind and walking through that door? So I believe it to be a skill, and it is merely another door in our mind. And as we become more mindful of that, we start to be able to walk through it and then reap the beautiful reward and benefit of walking through that door. No different than the logical mind is a door. And when you walk through that beautiful door, you gain the mathematical ability to process and calculate. And it's just a door. And our brain has the beautiful opportunity to walk through many doors. It just has to be changed from one door is excellent and the other door is bad or negative or wooey or whatever. They are merely doors that our brain can activate. Anyways, I just wanted to add to that. So it kind of brings it back to a more simple place, right? It's not, it's not some higher level thing that only monks in caves can attend to.
No.
And just in my book, just a quick one, I have productive contemplation, which is a way you get there very easily.
Beautiful.
It's like you do it waking with your eyes open. I went through the meditative place, but when I talked about making things simpler, here's the simple way to get to that place, which is just less time of decades of practicing to become a monk, which you don't have to do, because once you find it, it's easy. And, I've noticed this with people. It's like, oh, I found that space, even if it was for a second, it's like, cool. Now, that you've got that door, you can go into that door again, because you know where it's at now and how to get there. So cool.
Thank you. See if there's any more questions so when I'm doing this, can you scroll down on the questions yourself, or because you can? So you by all means do that.
So there's one here that says, do we ask the horse to listen to us, or do we need to listen to them? I generally think that horses are beings that are constantly listening to frequency. It's natural for them to just feel their environment. So I don't necessarily think that we have to ask them to listen to us. I think that there's a desire for connection and energies kind of moving through the web all the time. Do we need to listen to them? I believe that if we're talking about walking through that door, beginning to become mindful of the energy around us is a part of that, where you become a little bit more, because what happens for most people, I feel like, is that we're so our mindfulness is wrapped around the boxes we've created with our emotional, the things that have come up in our lives that have drawn us into self-preserving states. We're extremely mindful of those things, which causes us to hardly ever be within our own space unless we sense something we need to protect ourselves from. So we're extremely sensitive to that kind of mind. Now, that's obviously extreme, but that would just to make the point. So in the beginning, as we begin to gain this ability to find ourselves more still and feel the space around us, I believe it's a good exercise to not necessarily ask the horse to listen to us, but for us just to put ourselves out in the space. Do we need to listen to them? Okay, so then that talks to that point of like, what happens when you get into the space? You will start hearing each other. You'll start feeling the space more, and the richness of what the feedback is starts to grow. Again, that's another byproduct of walking through the door. So that's just kind of a quick, I'm trying not to get too deep on each question, but Sue, do you have anything you want to add to that one?
No, I don't think of it as asking the horse anything, actually. I just get in that space and then I think, I'm going over here and I'm going to go do this. And they go. And it's like, there is no, I'm making them do it or any, it's just like, hey, since we've got the connection here, now I'm going to go do this. And they go, okay, I'll go do that with you. It's like all of these ideas that we have, things are hard with the horse, and we have to do these things to make them do it. It's like, it can just be so fluid and easy once you've gone through, like Josh said, that door. The struggles diminish. Like, because do you ask your spouse every time, like you go somewhere, if you were walking, now we're walking here? No, you're connected and you both kind of, or if you're dancing, you don't, there's this flow to it that doesn't require you to say, now are we going to turn? No, I just have made an idea. I'm going to turn, and now we're going to turn, and it's all easy. That's all I can say is the more we try to complicate it with, ooh, should I ask or should I tell or what if I'm asking in the wrong way? So, like, people get all these questions. I talk about question marks in our brain. The horse sees every question mark in your brain and goes, oh, I don't know. I don't want to follow you because I see all those question marks. You don't know what you're doing. I just make my brain like, I'm going over here in a very soft way. I'm going over here, and then I'm going to go over here. And there's no question that I'm going to go over there. Whether you want to come with me is your choice. But usually if my energy is right, they just follow along. So, and sometimes I think if I think it's a little tough, like, I'm the most interesting person in the world. And then I walk off and the horse just goes, well, I want to be with the most, and it's just a funny way to like lighten your energy a little bit. When you think that, it's like, why wouldn't somebody come if I'm really the most wonderful person? They just go along. And again, it's kind of like your door. It's like, there's a thing that I'm doing energetically, but that just simplifies the process of, why would you not want to follow me? Do you ask your girlfriends, hey, want to come with me? Yeah, we want to go. What are you doing? Oh, well, we're going to go paint the house over there first, and then we'll go to dinner. And they're like, okay, we'll go do that. We'll go paint the house, and then we'll go to dinner and celebrate. I think of my relationship with the horse in the same way. They're my, I may ask you to do something that's not all that fun, but we're going to have fun while we're doing it. I'm going to make this the most pleasant experience you can imagine. And through my energy field. Just simplistically. I mean, this is so hard to explain in a theoretical setting, but.
I just want to add to that because it kind of connects to another point, a question that's a little bit lower, but I try to listen to them, but I feel they need my guidance. Is this right? So then what I find a lot of times in dealing with or working with people is that they can have a great intention, but because of life, we've gotten to a place where that intention never leaves our body. So it's like I feel like there's no name to that question, but that question is speaking to this sense of energetic desire to be heard and present that life outside of your body. So it's not necessarily the horse, that you're able to get the horse to hear you necessarily, but that when you are most authentically connected to yourself, you are also the life leaves your body. So there is a process in the work that allows you to become authentic in your energy and your space. So then I wouldn't necessarily think of it like that your horse needs your guidance but they may not be hearing you if the thought that you have stays inside you, and then you walk kind of like this. The energy may not necessarily be leaving your body. So I would, and this can be done in many ways. I say people are generally authentic in the very states. So when you're very happy, very mad, very sad, your insides and outsides become the same. And this is a really great way to kind of dive into, if we could use more of the very state to just think about authenticity. That when you're feeling an energy, that you might allow it to just move outside your body, so that you're just letting what is within you show up. Now, the challenge for most people is that this touches on the edges of vulnerability, that we generally do not desire vulnerability because we have guardedness. So I think there's something there, Sue, regarding how people will sometimes, have a beautiful feeling, but they spent so much time protecting that then now they don't get felt. They're not felt because there's a bridge there to kind of process through. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I think it's true. I mean, like I said, there's so many different factors that we're dealing with,
Right.
individuals as they come in, and they have their own struggles and their own struggle with vulnerability, which is a huge one, right? And same thing with a horse. It can have the same kind of blocks to, I don't want to hear you because that would mean I'm vulnerable to whatever humans do to me when I'm that way. But yeah, it's interesting because I'll do an exercise where I will have somebody just go off, let the horses at liberty, and just go off. And can you walk in your authenticity, holding a certain energy, and just walk past the horse in that, as when they can walk around without looking at the horse, without even thinking about the horse being there. Can you walk around this little paddock area and just hold that energy, and no need attached to it? And I'll have him check in. Any needs attached to it? Are you feeling a need for your horse to follow you now? And they'll have to check in several times. And it really helps them start to go, oh, I think I'm holding it longer. I can feel like I can hold an energy, walk, and go forward with it. And it's like, that's all you need to do, is be able to do that same kind of thing. Find that energy, walk forward in it, not care where the horse is. And oftentimes I've had people do that, where they walk around for a while, and then all of a sudden I can watch, because I watch the horse and it's off grazing. It's, off the side. And then all of a sudden they'll walk by and they'll give them a side eye, like, huh? And I'll just say, keep walking. And then pretty soon the horse is following them. And one lady one time did that, and she didn't know, because she's just on her own path then. And all of a sudden the horse is right there at her side, and she goes, oh, she got scared. She didn't even know he was right next to her. It's like, do you see how you captured that horse? Just being yourself, just holding your energy. You got his attention because you weren't focused on, what is he going to do? What should I do if he doesn't do it? What, all those, again, those question marks that come up in our brains when we're uncertain or we don't know. But, it just proves that it's all about the energy you hold. Like you're saying, you hold that energy, that horse is going to notice it, unless they've got so much trauma that they can't. But for the most part, I've seen that work a lot of times.
I think that there's two really, I love that, because really what we're just saying is, like, can you just walk around the pen and be authentic? Two active ways that are amazing. I did this in a course one time years ago, And it was a personal development course where at the end, what they did is they had everybody stand in a big circle, and you would have to go into the middle of the circle and dance and just dance. And it was like, holy smokes, that was so hard for me because I was so worried about what everyone would think about my very unable body to dance,
Yeah.
and but it's like, okay, how richly can I just embody my own, like, it's not about anybody else. So this whole ability of like being able to do a thing, whether it's just in your saying walk, it's like, can you just be yourself in the presence of your horse? Can you just liberate yourself and not worry? And then the other one is how often would you say, and consider, just ask yourself this question: how often would you say you're truly authentic in your words in conversation when you're talking to someone, or how often are you trying to play games? Just this idea of jockeying to know what to say and what not to say, versus just truly saying, this is my feel and here's what I think. It's amazing how often we will not do that, which then starts to cause us to divide internally and externally, because we're practicing just self-preservation again instead of here's me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so
So
true.
good.
So true.
Emotions keep free.
Do you want me to put a few comments out? I'm not interrupting you
Sure.
because you're doing amazing, you guys. So I'll put this one on because this is Gail Simmons. When I do animal communication, I leave what I call earth self and go into a gentle energy space where there is no sense of time or urgency. Is this like the space that you were talking about?
I guess since Josh is quiet, or his camera froze, I'm not sure which. So I will just tell
Very
my
quiet.
part that he can tell his. It's the totally kind of the present state is very interesting, because when there's times when I'm doing a horse and I'll like be there for a little bit doing something, and then I'll go, that's odd. I haven't had a thought. And it's a really like, and then I'll go, oh, well, and then I'll go back to it. It's like, it's a really interesting space. And I think it's the one you're talking about, but I think everybody experiences it in a different way, or would, again, not be able to use words. But yeah, it's like the space when I'm working with the horse is like, I am so totally present with everything that's being communicated in the energy field that I lose a sense of a separate self, if that makes sense. And it's really cool. Sometimes it's like, look at that lady talking. Oh, wait, that's me. But I'm totally in my body at the same time. Like, I'm totally present. So it's that other door, as Josh would say, and it's a gamma brainwave. It's like you're engaging every part of your brain, and it's all communicating. There's this like amazing communication that's going on, and it's like, oh, this is what it's like to be truly human and truly present in the space. This is so relaxing. It's so cool. So yes, that's where I get everything is enhanced, like the communication is enhanced, everything. So I think it might be the same place, but Josh can probably explain it better than my babbling right now.
Oh no, it's all good. It's great. I look at it as time. To me, the relativity of time in an energetic space is different than Earth. You call it Gail, I think was the one who asked that question.
Yeah.
You're talking about Earth self, and the Earth self would be more of like the senses that allow us to exist on this Earth, and time seems very linear, like it's like clocks by the second. Where from an energetic place, I feel like time is so relative. Law of relativity speaks very specific to this moment, because when you're in a certain state, the saturation of experience can be so rich, and the information that can be granted in a single moment can be just so deep and rich, which would have needed so much time on an earth plane. So there's times where you feel like you've just been granted a gift from heaven. So then when you walk through certain doors, it's like it's an entirely different space. And I truly believe that's where most of the universal language, I like to call it kind of that mind, because it kind of encompasses the holistic form of what happens when we're in communion with ourselves and with other beings. So yeah, it's like the time is less relative when we walk through that door. and it can slow down to where it's like you're almost watching yourself, and
Right.
it can almost seem to speed up, because I've had times when I'm in that space and I didn't even recognize that an hour and a half went by. And then there's other moments when I would say, man, that was so rich, I'm sure an hour and a half went by, and it's 2 minutes later.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's totally irrelative. So that, anyways, that's kind of where
Yeah.
I would think with that.
I
Absolutely.
can, sorry, Susie, I can, so when you were talking about time, that when you're in that space, that time seems to be on a different scale, or it doesn't exist. It's very, very slow or very, very fast. So when I've been with clients, sometimes they can see what I'm doing, and I will say sometimes there's no words, it's just the silence, and I usually describe it like the peace and quiet before a storm. You know, when all the birds stop singing and the wind drops and it's really, really calm and it's lovely and quiet. And the best bit I love to do is to get them to experience, to have a go and experience themselves. So they will go up to the horse and they will just put their hands, and I'll just say, take a breath and just feel yourself, listen to your heart and see what happens. And you can see them close their eyes and start to relax. And as they're doing that, the horses drop and they relax. And then the horse will breathe out and the person will breathe out. And you see the shoulders drop and you know that they're in that space. And I'll leave them there for a while and then I'll go, so what are you feeling? They'll go, just calm, just really peaceful. And they go, that is it. That is the pure spot that you're in, that you are communicating, but not on a verbal level, on a different different form, energetic. I mean, this is my words. This is how I describe it, and that is lovely. And sometimes they will have tears, and the horse again. You will see the horse just breathe and drop the shoulders, just drop even more, and it's lovely to see that. And when they walk away, and you can just see the change in them. So to get somebody to do that and to feel that themselves and to experience it is more meaningful, because it's them and the beautiful horse that they want to have a better relationship with. And I love those moments. So that's from my perspective.
Cool. I don't want to interrupt, but Michelle Peterson had a really good question.
Yeah,
So
go
she
ahead.
asked, so are you walking through other doors but not shutting or slamming off all the other doors? And that's a really good question, because I think of it as I've opened every single door wide open, so that everything, all the information possible is coming in. So like I'll be thinking, okay, so do something. What's going on with the nervous system? Oh, I could do that. So it's this beautiful place where you're accessing everything. You're fully accessing your entirety of who you are, plus that other realm. And it's so magical. And that's the only way I could explain it, because I feel like I'm so highly tuned in that space. And I think Josh had said it too, but there's time distortion that happens in that space. There's all these, like, it doesn't follow the rules that we are taught, that we think the world has to work like. And that's what I think is so beautiful about finding that. And also, kind of one of the things I wanted to just state about, like, the breathing place, it's like sometimes I'll help people find that space at the bottom of their breath when they exhale and they don't inhale right away, and they just linger in that space of nothing. That's where you start to find the sacred space. And what's really funny, because I named my book Sacred Spaces, but I didn't know this till afterwards, that native indigenous cultures believe that the pause in the breath is the sacred space. And I totally think that's the coolest thing ever, because it really, for me, like if I'm having a hard time or like get off center, I'll go to that pause, and then I'm immediately into that space again. And there's times, and I've worked with people getting to that exhale, and you linger there, and she goes, wow, it feels like I don't have to breathe anymore. I'm like, yeah, isn't that the weirdest sensation? Like I could just stay there and not have to breathe. Everything slows down. Even your thoughts will slow down. Everything slows down to be congruent with that space. So that's just a kind of off thing. But I
Mhm.
loved that last question about, do you close other doors? No, you open them all.
And I'd like to add to that because I feel like people believe that your brain is the central element and the doors exist around the brain. And I feel like our brain is actually a door. So there's a central place where we exist, which is at your calm center. And there's like, we could probably spend another 5 hours dissecting that element. But
Yeah.
the place that you exist is this place we're desiring to find our center as a calm. And the doors are from there. So when we can get to that place where we become still, then I agree. I think the doors are all open. They never shut. But the more you have, more awareness you have, the more doors you actually realize you have access to. And then what happens is the quieter you can get, then when you're in a moment, it becomes quite obvious and that you will be drawn to a door in a moment. And the relativity of time decides how much information you're granted. And then in the next moment you'll be drawn to another element, and then sometimes it's two at one time, and sometimes it's, you know but if you recognize that you're not actually coming from your mind and looking at all the doors, it makes it too linear, too rational, too binary. But if you're coming from a still place, and then in a moment you would see all the doors open and become mindless about what door you go through, but you just get quiet. And this is why it's such important practice in whatever way possible. And Sue, you said you have a practice in your book. I'm excited to get that far in the book to read that, because that to me is just, that's when we can get more and more ways where we can find stillness. Then inside of the stillness, just listen, perk your ears up and just listen. It's like, when you see a horse hears something but they don't know what it is. It's like you're just listening. And I think moments need more observation where you listen, and then you'll be drawn, and the space gives guidance. Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to add that because I totally agree with the doors open.
Oh,
Doors
cool.
don't actually shut. They don't need to shut. That's when our brain is making it binary, right? When one door closes, another door was like binary, it's 0 or 1. I
Right.
don't think it exists in that realm in this conversation the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, just to your point, Josh, it's why every exercise I do with people, get out of your thinking mind, get out of the analyzing everything and trying to figure it out, and get into this other space. But there's a lot of barriers to that too, for people. So everything, I think both of us kind of work on a place where are you at this time, and how can I help you open some doors, or
Mm-hmm.
find where those are. And I love that metaphor because it's what we used in hypnosis. Like, okay, now you're here, and which door do you want to pick? Which door do you want to open? And those are all have different messages for us and different information for us behind those different doors. But yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's also where frustration comes. So if you think your mind is the central space, your mind in many ways is limited to its function. And so then when you are in your mind all the time, in your brain, the logical elements of your brain, this is where frustration comes, because now if you're trying to, from your mind state, understand the universal scope, your mind will become greatly frustrated. And generally that's why people will downplay other things when they're in their mind, because the mind can't actually conceive it, because it's not what the mind was for.
No.
The mind is to process your existence on this earth, come up with certain thought to actually activate you to eat food, to drink water, to live life, to build provision. And it does that really, really well. And it should be appraised in all the things that the mind can do.
Right.
Now, when we speak to other doors, this is where the mind is not awesome. It's like, I think of it like a beautiful team. And I look at all of the doors like a beautiful team, that everybody is upheld and empowered in what they can do amazingly. And the brain can do certain things. And when the brain is no longer at its powerful place, it then releases it to another team member. And we're all just beautifully trying to support any one moment with no negativity to any of the other team members.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's where frustration can come, because you're actually trying to force one piece of your being to make up for an area that it actually doesn't have skill set.
Thank you. I'm digesting what you just said. I'm processing it, but my brain's trying to process it. I'm just looking to see if there's more questions. Do you see any questions that you'd like to answer?
There's just one here that says, so this is why, Kimberly asks, so this is why we need to think through our heart. Is that correct? I'll just answer first maybe, but I feel like we're closer to thinking from that perspective. To me, it's like a soulful place. Our soulfulness is the center, and it just is like, to me, it's just this beaming space. It's like a pure beaming light, and the doors kind of move from that. And that's like us really being able to see our own beauty, our own being, our own unique elements, which is more soulful to me. So yes, now heart also has physical elements that are not just pumping blood, but there's other elements of heart in the actual physiology. So I generally want to back it even a step farther to say soulfulness. Like, this is where the unique light of who you are is. The word is would be just being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Susie?
And I just want to kind of add on that. I think when I wrote the book several years ago, it was almost like at that time, this big expansion of this into the horse realm hadn't happened. It was still so constricted, you might say, like, oh, we can't let those kind of thoughts come in, and because we have methods and we have ways, and I was like, how do I infiltrate this a little bit with some different ideas, but stay within a scope where it could be accepted by people who were very scientific or people who were a little further into, the other side of it. And so it's like I explained things in a very scientific way, because I thought that this needed to come out, for those people who didn't feel comfortable with, like, what are you guys doing? How does this work? And it's like, here's how it works. If you need that, if you need to know that, here's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how it works. I know it works. That is way back there in another door that's wide open all the time, but that I don't need to, like, go back and go in that door and, like, have to explain to everybody why it works, because now it doesn't matter because I'm in a different place. But it's interesting how people will say, but your book isn't scientific enough. It's not this, or it's too scientific, or, it's like, we're never going to please those people who need to be in one camp or the other camp. And for me, I said this to somebody recently, it's like, my right and left brain, my scientific with my spiritual and intuitive side, have fused together to a point where I cannot separate them anymore. They work in conjunction with each other all the time, and I can't separate them. And I think it feels like kind of where Josh is. It's like, you've done all the science, you've know all that, but there's this fusion of everything together, that why do we need to separate them and make one bad or the other bad? Why can't they both be good? And why can't they both work in conjunction with each other? And that's kind of where I feel like I work. And, if it bothers people that I'm not scientific enough, sometimes it's like, well, I went down that road. It's back there. I can rely on that for one of those doors to open up when I need it. But I'm going to work in a different space.
And I hear you saying that there's just no more doors.
There's no more. So there aren't any, because they're all, like you said, they're all wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And everything. Yeah. Why is it the human brain has to compartmentalize everything? It's like, that goes over here and this goes over there. And those two are far apart, so they can't talk. And this happens, believe it or not. I mean, why I got out of the academia is because they have they have lots of doors, and they shut doors, and you only have one little room to work in. And from within that door, within that room you're working in, you have to stay within the rules of that room. And you go, but I think we could get some information over there from that other department. And they go, oh, no, you can't. Don't you go over there. Shut that door. Don't no. And I think there's this freedom now that I can go anywhere I want to. I don't have to stay in a room. And that's, for me, the expansion of experience, because now I'm free to experience anything. And I don't have to worry about explaining anything because I get to just experience it. And the people that I'm with get to experience it. And they can go home and say, yeah, I had an experience.
I think too, it's because when people exist inside of the door, that is the mind, it is more binary. So there is kind of right and wrong, and 2 + 2 is 4, and it's not 6. So it's kind of like, I think that's where people can get confined to needing that stuff. It's like, okay, it's not scientific enough because it's not answering all of the things I need to understand it's not 0, but it's 1. So I think that is generally a demonstration of when people, there is something for us to answer in regards to that, but it is not the primary existence. That is a door that can be conversed about, but there has to first off be a conversation that we are not living only inside of this room.
Right.
There was just another question that I'm really drawn to. It's and I don't actually know if it's a question, but it really pulled me. I'm trying to give my horses the best life possible. I want to enjoy them, their energy, and have them join together in what I need from them in terms of their competition life. This is intriguing to me because this is something that we are doing in some form in some of the things that I do for myself and that my daughters are doing. And it's somewhat competitive. And the thing I think first off is that it's a recognition that you can do anything because this is a way. It's not rules. The challenge is, can you relinquish yourself from the rules that have been created and exist in a way, and then partake in that environment? And I believe this to be the way we're going to transform the competitive environment, that it's not just existence based on these confined rules that here's how you do it. If you want to build a cow horse, then you have to start them this way. You got to start at this, you got to here's all your rules. And the brain loves that because it's like, this is right and this is wrong. And now I can settle that. I don't need to deal with that anymore because that's it. Versus saying that you can do, there is no limits. There is no limitation. The key is to be in relationship and conversation with your horses and to develop a connection with your horses that have their buy-in. And okay, so just as a little example with my daughter, she's competing in barrel racing and she's getting more and more competitive. And we've had a lot of unique conversations around, is this, when there's been struggles have come up, is this physiology? Is this a struggle he's having physically? Is it fatigue? Is it a connection? And almost every time that there has been a struggle, it has been about reassessing her commitment and connection to him versus going around 3 cans, which he generally doesn't care about. But when they have reassessed that and realigned, it has always transformed the next moment. So it's like, so then what she scores or what she clocks, that's a thing, but it is not the heart. It's a part of it. And it's about being able to retain your connection to what is most important to you, because that's what's most important to the horses. They don't really care. They don't understand the competitive life. Do they enjoy competing? I truly believe they do, but they need to feel like what their needs in it are taken care of before that, or they'll feel victimized. So anyways, just as a sense, I truly believe there's a synergy there that it can be. And the goal is, is it as easy? No. Is there more to consider? Sure. But you have to, but I believe the world needs that too, to have reformed minds in that space. Yeah.
Absolutely. And can I just add, I know we're running almost on 2 hours into the time warp here. In my book, I talk about my experience with Tank and me at the World Show. And the fact that I went to that show thinking I would never have that horse again, that he was going to be part of the settlement of my divorce, and that I went there with the idea that this would be our last ride together and we would make it the best ever. And I rode him in the sacred space, and it was kind of that place where it was surreal, and all those things, and people would come and watch, which they don't normally watch dressage because it's kind of boring at the lower levels, like, but people were coming in the stands and sitting there every time we came in. And I'm like, what is that about? What they were experiencing was the sacred space. And my horse performed better than he has ever performed. I didn't try. I didn't care what we did. I just wanted the last ride, the most special. And we won to the next person 10 percentage points higher than the next person. And in dressage, that's a huge margin, especially when you're talking about the top horses in the country that were competing open at that time. And it'd like, somebody said to me, you know what, you fooled the judge. And I'm like, an Olympic judge? I don't think I fooled him. But I think that they felt that connection, communion was what it was at that time. And it was infectious, and it like expanded beyond me and tanked to the stands, to everybody that was there. And they got to feel that peace, which is so different than, what a usual show is like, is everybody's tense and everybody's competitive and everybody's having a freak out, and none of the horses are having a good time. And it's like, here's two people, well, a horse and a person. See, I said two people, a horse and a person having a sacred time. And that is what drove me to do this work. I'm going to tell you, after that, I'm like, I have to know why that happened, how it happened, how I can teach other people to have that happen for them. Because once they experience that, there's nothing else that compares to that. I can tell you. And it's not like we're at a high level dressage. He was a young horse. It's not a high level. But on that day, it was magic. I don't, and not to brag or anything, but this was the turning point. It had to happen in my life because it turned me around to what is my purpose. And it's not for me to go back to the show and do that a bunch of times. It's for me to go, hey, wherever you're at, you could experience this. If some little girl from the back roads of Colorado in the country who doesn't have a regular trainer can do it, you can do it. That's my drive. That's why I take a bunch of from people sometimes about what I'm doing, because I know what my purpose is, and you can't sway me from it, and it's bigger than me. So.
Awesome.
Wow.
I saw somebody write about, tell the story of Tank in your book, and it's like, I didn't even put my name as that was me in the book. I couldn't even do that. It's like, it doesn't matter that it's me. All that matters is it's the story. So
that was beautiful, Susie. That was absolutely beautiful. So guys, we have been on for nearly 2 hours. Is there anything else that you'd like to, before we're going to do the competition as long as we can get that bit working, but so while I'm trying to sort that out, is there anything that you'd like to just say to the viewers, to the listeners, just to give them some more encouragement to go out and have a practice? Because you're both saying the same things but in different ways, and it's never just about the horses. It can't be, because that's only a portion of it. It's about how it changes you, how it changes your life. But with the people the people that come into your life, you start to change things and see things within yourself, and new people come along. There's new connections, there's new light bulb moments, and it's and sometimes it feels like you've heard this before, but this time you've heard it differently. So is there anything that you'd like to just say while I'm trying to sort out the competition side?
For me, it would just be that right where you're at is the perfect place to start. This isn't a sometimes, again, I kind of touched on this earlier, but this is a way of being, and a way of being is about integrating a thinking style into every moment. So then, it's so as things are happening for you, just begin transforming your thinking about the way you're moving through life. And again, that can be smaller, it can be big, but it's a way. And there's always success that can be developed in that progression. So I just want to encourage everyone to just recognize that as you just transform your thinking and you shift your process, it might seem like it's only making little steps, but again, size is not a thing, and neither is time. And as you begin to transform that process, you begin moving in a new way, and that's how this changes it. That's the way it was for me. It's like it wasn't just one big moment. There have been big moments, but it was just this ever present attention to certain details that caused me to transform my thinking style and allowed me to experience life in a different frequency, and that everybody can do that right where you are.
That's lovely. Yeah. And just kind of finishing up, just to add, yes, I totally believe everybody can do it. And I'm just encouraged by people, I'm almost like, I get almost emotional, just in like joy place, because it's so wonderful as I watch the comments go by, and for everyone to listen to Josh and I that have a different perspective on what's been out in the horse world for a long time, and to have people come here and embrace it and want to learn. And it encourages me to keep going, because there has not been easy times in my life trying to do this. It's been a lot of rejection and humiliation and all those kind of things. And I kept going, no, but this is my purpose. And so I just want to encourage everybody, like, if your purpose, if you know what it is, I didn't know what mine was till 50 some years old. and it's like, I kept wondering, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Well, the timing wasn't right. My purpose wasn't yet to come into knowing, because things had to align outside of me before my purpose could be expressed or realized. And now that I'm on that, it's about doing this work and to help whoever I can that comes my way. Because I don't go out and actively advertise anything. If people find me, it's completely by divine intervention, I think. I don't know how they find me. And I have to keep pure to, like, this is how I work, and this is the space, and I don't want it ever to be corrupted to become something it's not. Mm-hmm. And I will stand in that space, just as I do with my horses. I stand in that space with my horse and protect who I am. I'm going to protect what this work is, and that it is sacred work, and it is about really expanding humanity. Josh is doing it. It has been out there for longer than I have, I think, doing this work, but we're both on that journey of this is what our purpose is. And I'm devoted to that first, foremost in my life. So I thank everybody who came here and listened. And it's a dream come true that people hear these words, because they're to help you, not to help me.
Thank you, Susie. That was lovely. And I just want to say, so before we go, I'm just going to say quickly. So if you want to enter the competition, so Josh and Susie are both offering a prize. If you hashtag Heart Horse, if you do that now, and then I'm going to run the competition app. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll work. But if not, don't worry, I'll do it manually afterwards. And I just want to say that from my own perspective, okay, so this is what I do. I do animal communication, and I absolutely love it. And when I'm in that zone, it's as clear as day. When I step out that zone, it's like mud sometimes. And I sometimes walk away thinking, did that really happen? Or did they really say that? Did that come through? And we're forever learning. We're growing, we're evolving, and what feels right today might not necessarily feel right tomorrow, because we're changing. As we change, what we was okay with yesterday, we question in a week's time. So just be kind with yourself, and don't get cross if you don't get it right, because it's about learning. And I'm talking to myself as I'm saying this. Okay, I love my horse, but my journey with Toots, and funny enough, as I've grown personally, it feels harder in some ways. Now that's probably because I'm making it harder, but that's my lesson. That's what I got to figure out, which I do. But it is a journey, and it's not always easy. So I wanted to say that to you. But when you're dealing with other people, you don't have the emotional baggage. So sometimes it's easier, and your mind and your energy gets into autopilot. So as soon as you're doing that, it's like you're switched on straight away, and it flows as it should do. When you come out of it, and you're like I'm running the communicator, I'm running the person, that's when it's you, and you're looking and reflecting back on your day and how you perceive yourself to be. I hope that makes sense. I'm not waffling on, guys. So I'm going to have a go at making this competition work. Fingers crossed. So let's just see what happens. So the first competition is for Susie's prize. So let's see if this works first before she explains again. Fingers crossed. Right. Okay. Let's see if this works. Yay! It worked. Okay. So,
I was like, Judy.
Judy Roll has won the prize for Susie, and let me just get that out of there. Hang on, I've got to figure out. This is my first time doing this, so you'll have to excuse me. I'm not brilliant on tech. So amazing. So amazing. Okay.
It's very funny because I know Judy, and she's coming up from New Mexico, traveling through next week, I think, is our appointment. So I'll see her in person. This is really going to be fun.
That's so cool. Right. Okay, let's go for Josh's now. Let's see. Here we go. How do I do that again? Right, I'm going to do that. And there should be music with this. I don't know what I've done. Yay!
No way!
No, she can't win too.
No, Judy, that's
Oh, Judy, if that's okay with you, I'm gonna run that again because that looks like it's a fix.
Uh-oh.
That's crazy.
People, she may want him over me though, so we'll better
Okay,
make a decision.
Let's hang on a second. Right, I'm going to do that again because that can't be right. Okay.
Or she could win it with him, since she's going to see me next week. I don't know. We can decide.
Let's see who's coming up.
Oh, okay. Suzanne, yay.
Suzanne Rudder, you have won Josh's.
Yay, Suzanne.
Cool.
So I do apologize for my I'm not tech savvy. So this is my first time having a go with this. Let me take that out. Okay, guys. That was so funny.
Oh, I know. I don't know. We need to hang around with Judy more.
Yeah.
I mean,
buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, I'm sure she won't mind me doing that again. I'm sure she won't. So congratulations to both winners. Okay, so if you can contact Josh or Susie, whoever won the prizes, in person, and they will get back to you, or you can send me a message and I'll pass it on again. I'll send the details anyway.
Judy knows me, so she'll see me. Like I said, I think she can find me. She'll find me somehow next week or whenever I think it's next week. So I've lost track of time.
I know we've been on 2 hours, guys. I personally want to say thank you so much because this is your weekend, for giving up 2 hours at least of your time, and thank you for sticking with me. I try my best to. Sometimes I don't think I'm doing enough, so I hope that you've enjoyed this session together, and I've allowed you the time that you need to talk about what you need. but sometimes it's a bit difficult because I'm listening to you and I'm seeing what's going on screen as well. So I hope everybody enjoyed this. I've loved it. I'm going to watch it, and obviously I'll listen to it when I'm doing the podcast editing, and then it will go out as an audio, so you can you can watch this again and you can listen to it. And I listen to them in the car, so when I edit it, I'll hear different things, but then I'll listen as a viewer. Thank you so much, you two. It's been amazing. I've loved listening to you. I could listen to you all day, but I'm sure you don't want to spend all day on the computer. Do you want to say anything before you go?
Just thank you for having me. It's just so awesome to create this type of space, and to be a part of this conversation has been illuminating and exciting to share.
Same sentiments from me, not to copy you, but and Ronnie, thank you for doing this, and really just excellent job of being the host or facilitator, whatever you wish to call yourself. I don't know.
I don't mind, long as it's polite.
Okay.
Which it was. So I hope everybody has gained something from this interview, from this joint interview, and hopefully go away and just sit with it and have a practice, or contact Susie and Josh. All the details of their websites are on this stream as well, so you'll be able to contact them personally. If you want to pass any message on, you can, more than welcome to do that through me too. I'm just going to pop Josh and Susie out, so if you hang on a second. Thank you so much, guys.
Goodbye. Thank
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, amazing. It's so funny. I always get nervous before I come on live, and Josh came on and he was so cool. He was just so cool. And me and Susie had a few technical issues, and we got on. And the whole way through that, I can feel my heart beating because I'm really paying attention, but I'm also looking at what's going on. So I hope that everybody enjoyed that joined tonight. Thank you so much for your questions. Have a lovely weekend, and who knows, we may do this again, depending on Susie and Josh in the future. Still send your comments on, and I'll pass them on. Take care, and bye for now. Thank you. Bye.